sneaking and watching Looking for Mr. Goodbar on HBO back in the day. My uncle, my maternal grandmother's son, who has spent 75% of his adult life in prison for being a serial rapist, when he sent his boxes from jail home, or I don't know if it's the times he came home from jail, they were loaded with porn books and magazines, not just, Playboy and stuff like that magazines, but I'm talking about books. I can remember bestiality being in those books. I can remember the most obscene, sexually vulgar scenes and words in those books. And I was little, I was young. This was beyond erotica, because I know what erotica is. When I used to write under the name Joylyn M. Jossel, I wrote women's lit and I wrote women's erotica. So I know what that looks like, but I can remember this being obscene. And not to give too much information, but I remember that was my first time experiencing what self-pleasure was. I'm trying to watch my words here because I don't want to get flagged or anything like that. But I remember specifically reading those books, just being nosy as a kid, going through his box. And I remember Cube. Some of y'all will not remember Cube, but do you all remember that cable box? It was called Cube, and it would have the Playboy channel. It would have Escapades, and even if you didn't subscribe to those channels, because remember you had to pay, but even if you didn't subscribe, they would show. You could see a fuzzy version of it. If you turn to the actual channels, you could see fuzzy version of it, or it would just be lines flipping, but you could actually see the sexual acts that was going on. And I can remember as a very young child watching that stuff on the Cube. And again, I remember back when HBO first came out, it was the same movies played over and over and over and over all month long. You used to get this little program book, and it was maybe 10 movies at best that would play all month long, and you get the times. And I remember Looking for Mr. Goodbar, and if anybody has ever seen that, blech. I mean, woo, chale. Rest in peace, Diane Keaton, but in that role, woo, child. And so those are the times that I came into agreement with the spirit of lust, the spirit of perversion, the fact that I'm reading a serial rapist porn magazines and books that he sent home from prison. So I'm thinking, and I know there's probably parents who have erotica books, parents who probably have porn or channels that show pornography and very sexually explicit movies, and they probably aren't, they would hide a gun before they would hide those pornography magazines. They would hide a gun before they would hide those erotica and pornography books from their kids. And then we wonder why child on child essay is so prevalent, or was so prevalent, at least in my time, because like I said, I'm 54. But after doing the 5-video series last night, I prayed, and I mentioned in one of the videos, I really can't remember exactly when I was subjected to the spirit of lust, the spirit of perversion, the spirit of pornography, or whatever it was. And so I prayed and asked the Holy Spirit to bring it back to my memory. So not only was it when my mom, being a go-go dancer, didn't have a babysitter, so she would take me to the go-go bar. And there was a time or two where I got to dance. I'm talking, I'm 6 and 7, dancing in a go-go bar on a stage, getting tips by men. But he brought back to memory watching Looking for Mr. Goodbar, watching the Playboy channel, and I want to say it was called Escapades. I want to say that was the name of the other sex channel. It was on a cable device called Cube. Y'all know this is the Holy Spirit. I would have never remembered this stuff without asking for the Holy Spirit help. But it was called Cube. And everybody's not going to remember this. And I didn't even Google this first, but the Holy Spirit is always right. I didn't even Google, was there a cable device called Cube back in 19? No, the Holy Spirit is always right. And my uncle, again, maternal uncle, who has spent and is still in prison to this day, 75% of his adult life in jail because he's a serial rapist. And one of those occasions he was home, or maybe he shipped his boxes home or something, I don't know. But as a young child, I went nosy and digging in them boxes, and I found all those dirty magazines and actual books. And they were beyond your typical erotica, you know, by Zane, or even the ones I used to write. Like I said, I remember them having bestiality in it, all kinds of stuff. Woo-wee. So, any books? Wow. Y'all, so much is going through my head right now. I'm thinking back to a section in my book that I'm working on. Your book is your business, money-making sales strategies. And one of my colleagues, she's a New York Times best-selling author of Christian fiction, faith-based nonfiction, things of that nature. And I asked her to give me a foreword. And she said, you know, something in the book gave her pause. And it was a section in the book where I'm just giving a little tip to erotica writers. And that section gave her pause. Even though it's just, you know, it's not talking about erotica, it's not sharing any type of scenes, but it's giving, and that gave her pause, and it pricked me, and it reminded me I'm on a certain journey, and I need to practice what I teach, practice what I preach, and that does need to come out of my book. But what's so crazy is that my editors sent the book back to me, and it was over the word count. So we took some pieces out. I can, you know, do some type of bonus lead magnet. So they took chapters out. They took that chapter out. I didn't even have to take that chapter out. Definitely not because she advised, because she was very particular about, I will never tell anybody what to write. I will never, you know, try to put my beliefs and my faith and what my instructions from the Holy Spirit are on someone else. But what I know for sure is the Holy Spirit used her. I knew the Holy Spirit had used her in that moment to say, hey, this isn't in alignment with the walk, with the talk, with the message. But now it's bigger than that. It's bigger than that. Y'all, that little piece of passage, and this is, again, this is no dig, no shade to erotica writers. Like I said, when I wrote under the name Joylyn M. Jossel, I wrote erotica, and yes, I have a book coming out with the New York Times bestselling author Carl Weber. We co-authored a book called Dating to Die. And I had a vision, I had a concept, and I shelled it out. And I just remember the Holy Spirit not allowing me to use curse words or anything of that nature. I couldn't use damn. I couldn't use hell. None of that. Oh, well, damn is in the Bible. Hell is in the Bible. The Holy Spirit absolutely would not allow me to use cussing. So on my run through, there's no cussing. Joylyn M. Jossel used zero profanity. And Carl Weber is also the producer of the BET series, Family Business, which I was the editor. on Family Business. He gives me a shout out in the, acknowledgments. But I think when I did the editing, I don't know if I was Joylyn M. Jostle then, using my maiden name, or if I was Joylyn M. Ross. But nonetheless, and he's also the director of Family Business New Orleans, however you choose to pronounce it, or it's pronounced, because I know in Nevada, we be like, but, because I'm from not from, but I live in the still fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada. And he's also the producer of the Black Hamptons on BET. And he's also the producer of The Man in 3B, film on the big screen, which I was also the editor on that. I was the editor on quite a few books. Christian Keys, I was the editor on his books. And Christian Keys is a phenomenal writer, by the way. Not just screenwriter, scripts, but he was phenomenal, because what we did is we turned his script, which is now a series on BET, All the Queen's Men. But that wasn't the title of the book. And I remember when we did the book years and years ago, the main lead was for Vivica Fox, because he had already had a conversation. He had already talked with Vivica Fox, and Vivica Fox agreed if he was able to sell the script, she would definitely play the role. But Eva has that role now, because it was so many years past. Not that Vivica still could not have slayed that role, honey, because Vivica's Vivica. Do we even got to say A. Fox anymore? I think Vivica is on one name status now. But anyway, that has nothing to do with this video. But I'm just saying, I know what erotica looks like. I know what women's fiction looks like. I know what, intimate scenes look like. I'm just trying to watch my vocabulary here, y'all. I know what I want to say. I'm just being careful with what I want to say, and just to let my, my fellow literary artists of erotica, or very intimate and strong intimate scenes. No, this is no shade. This is no dig to you or the readers of it, but hide it like you would a gun, because attached to a gun is the spirit of murder. I try to keep it either natural or spiritual, but everything is spiritual. My children ask me that, Mom, is everything spiritual? It is, y'all. It is. But the same way the spirit of murder is attached to guns, the spirit of lust, the spirit of perversion, depending on what the scenes are, the spirit of SA, it's attached to these books and these stories. I'm proof. Go back and watch my 5-series Child on Child SA, Generational Curse. Y'all, I'm not playing with this. Treat those adult books, those adult magazines, those adult channels like you would a gun. You wouldn't just leave it out on the table. You wouldn't just leave it out on the bookshelf. You wouldn't just leave it out like a remote control. Y'all, it's something when God reveals, when you ask, and when you're ready to. I had to be ready for this. I had to be ready for this. There was a time this message, I could have been called to deliver this message, and I wouldn't have gotten it. I don't know how I would have relayed it. I maybe would have downplayed it. Woo-wee. But anyway, just go back, watch the Generational Child on Child essay series. It's 5 parts, and you'll know what I'm talking about, because if you have not watched those, you are watching this particular video right now lost. And the last thing I want anybody to do is take anything I say out of context, which is very easy to do nowadays, especially. So you have to not only watch the videos, but you have to read my descriptions. You have to read my descriptions, okay? All right. Okay. Bye. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.